Hello everyone, first news update for 14th of February 2025. Now it's 10:30 in the morning local time, and let's start this update. As you know, dear friends, in last several days there was quite a number of some very important developments. For example, Trump-Putin phone call to start with conversation that lasted for 90 minutes about, and presidents of two countries exchange opinions on Ukrainian crisis, Middle East, and some other topics. Trump is making headlines here in Russia and worldwide also with his statements. For example, he announced a meeting of representatives of Ukraine, Russia, and the US in Saudi Arabia in short time. He also made an announcement that high-level Russian US delegations will meet on the sidelines of Munich, a security conference in Germany. He also, for whatever reason, stated that he is in favor of resurrecting G8, so that Russia will go back into this in this club. Okay, some people may argue that this is all good developments, some positivity there. Okay, I'm a bit skeptical about many things that we are observing these days, and I will share my take on the situation in a minute. But let's go through some other headlines. First of all, TASS news agencies report here that, according to press spokesman of the Russian president, Dmitry Peskov, face-to-face meeting between Trump and Putin should and most likely will take place before presidents will visit countries of each other. They exchange invitations during their phone conversation, and when it comes to place where Trump and Putin might meet each other, many sources are reporting about Saudi Arabia being the main candidate to host such a meeting. Okay, I am skeptical that such a meeting will take place, but anyways, we will see. By the way, Vzglyad newspaper is also reporting that, according to Dmitry Peskov, Russia considers the US as a main partner when it comes to resolving Ukrainian crisis. Interesting statement in regards that, by saying so, Moscow is clearly highlighting that Kyiv regime is not an actor, and Brussels or European Union or EU member states are also not an actors that can play some significant role in resolution of this conflict. Also, by the way, already same Peskov stated that if relationships between Russia and US will normalize, which is hardly believable, let's be clear on that, but if, then Moscow will be ready to receive US leader during the celebration of victory in a great patriotic war that is celebrated in Russia on 9th of May. Also, by the way, obviously you all know that a new chief of Pentagon, Pat Hegseth, was making headlines in recent days. He stated that, and Trump actually supported his statement that no NATO for Ukraine, basically. This topic should be close, at least for now. He also said that US will not deploy troops into Ukraine, and if it comes to peacemaker mission or peacekeeping mission, then European and some non-European states should send their forces, and they should operate on their own without cover of NATO's Article 5. Okay. There was a fake outrage, by the way, due to all these developments in Europe, and I will explain why I think this is a fake outrage. But many people, especially among Russophobic camp in the West, try to jump out of their socks. How dare Trump talk to Putin without consulting with the Kyiv regime or without consulting with the Brussels, European leaders, and that kind of crap. how their pet Hexet said that no NATO for Ukraine, how there he said that US will not deploy troops into Ukraine, all that kind of nonsense, by the way, all that kind of nonsense. Well, I'm saying this is a fake outrage because, yes, in one hand, I can believe that some individuals among Russophobic camp were upset that they knew nothing about Trump-Putin conversation. They knew nothing about statements that Hexet had made. But same time, we'll understand that nothing new was said, isn't it? Let's pay attention to details. That's what is most important. Did anybody from Trump's administration or Trump himself said anything that will really enhance negotiations, potential negotiations, or bring final resolution of the conflict to its end sooner? Did they say anything that really has any meaning whatsoever? No. No NATO for Ukraine. I mean, did Ukraine ever had realistic chances to become a de jure NATO member state? No. NATO's foundational documents themselves acknowledge that country that is engaged in military hostilities or has territorial issues cannot become a NATO member. Period. Right? So everybody here in Russia knew that Ukraine will never become a NATO member state. But what was issue for Russia is that this de facto Ukraine was transformed into a NATO member state. UK and US, some other countries, were already building military bases into Kiev-controlled territory. They were already bringing offensive military infrastructure of NATO closer and closer to Russia's borders. That was the issue. And statement alone that Ukraine will never join NATO, or at least now will not join NATO, don't changes any calculus that Russia has. Right? It's about presence of military infrastructure of NATO. And Hexet says nothing about that. Secondly, as far as I understand, Moscow was very clear that it will never agree on deployment of NATO troops into Ukraine. Russian president made statements about that. Some other high-ranking officials made statements about that. And if Hexet or anybody else now is saying that, you know what, European troops, no matter how many times they're going to say European troops should be deployed, they're not going to fool nobody, right? These countries, European countries, that potentially might send troops into Ukraine, let's say France, Germany, UK, or, I don't know, Poland, whatever. These countries are NATO member states, right? These countries are NATO member states, and their forces are NATO forces, period. So therefore, these statements of Hexet that, well, there will be no NATO troops into Ukraine, just, European states, if they might send their troops if they want to, and no fifth article for them. Really? These troops are NATO troops anyway, so what you are talking about? What this nonsense is all about? Right? And by the way, as I said, look at the details, nuances. And once you will analyze all the situation, you will come up with the question, what the hell is going on here? And what is this European Russophobes are outraged about? Is this outrage real or fake? Or maybe some massive deception campaign is on the way to set up next phase of escalation with Russia? Maybe that's what is happening, because that is the case, I believe. This is setup, by the way. This is a pure setup, deception operation to pave the ground for next phase of escalation with Russia. Because, mark my word, dear friends, in a couple of weeks' time, very same figures that are so outraged now in Europe, let's say, or very same figures in the US that are talking about no NATO for Ukraine and no NATO troops there, and they are all about the escalation. Very same people will start saying that, you know what, we were so generous in our offer to Russia to de-escalate, and Moscow didn't accept it. And therefore, I mean, what can we do? I mean, we have to carry on with this proxy war, right? That's what is going to happen, dear friends. That's what is going to happen. This is all deception operation. This is all a setup. And unfortunately, I think it is absolutely inevitable that in the next days, next several weeks, we will see significant change in rhetorics from Washington. We will see significant intensification of long-range strikes deep into Russian territory, large-scale long-range strikes deep into Russian territory. We will see a further activization of a topic of transformation of Kiev regime into a nuclear-armed regime. And at some point, Moscow will have no option but to react, and to react with heavy hand, which means that Russia will retaliate on its enemies, not just in Kiev-controlled territory, but elsewhere also, against military assets of countries that are directly involved in these hostilities against Russia, including US, France, UK, some other countries potentially. And after that, only after that, by the way, Western ruling class will really start facing reality and acknowledging that, yes, they lost. Because any further escalation will mean end of everything, full-scale nuclear exchange between the sides, and they cannot afford that. They are not suicidal. They don't want to die. These so-called Western elites. So then, at that point, they will de-escalate. And only then. So everything that we are observing in last several days, by the way, is a deception operation. Moscow, of course, understands this. Of course, Moscow understands this, by the way. But, seems like Putin decided to play along with Western ruling class in this game for time being. Because we are already, by the way, same time, Moscow is already informing world community on his take on the situation. For example, did you read anywhere in Western media that Trump actually proposed to end hostilities right now, and Russia refused? Russian media write about it. World media, I mean, in other countries, in other parts of this world, outside the Western world, media is writing about it. But Western media outlets, at least I did not see anywhere information that Russia actually refused to end hostilities immediately, as it was proposed by Trump. Right? And obviously, while playing along this game that Western ruling class started now, this deception operation, Moscow will inform rest of the world what is going on. Moscow will highlight that, look, dear friends, we have a very straight position to start meaningful talks, meaningful negotiations. Kiev regime's forces should withdraw their units from all the Russian regions, right? DPR, LPR, Kherson, Zaporozhye regions. Obviously, there should be no Kiev regime's troops into Kursk salient area. And after that, Russia will stop its military offensive operations, and their meaningful negotiations may begin. Only after that. Did Trump or Hexet or anybody said anything about it? No. They did not. Right? They are all about this deception, by the way. They are fake. They are too fucking fake, by the way. you know. Anyways, this is my take, dear friends. This is all a deception operation. Don't buy into it, or don't buy into it, by the way, because if you are buying into it right now, then I'm afraid you will buy into next phase of this propaganda game that Washington was so generous in its offer to end the hostilities, and it's Russia that refused. No, by the way, Russia already has its position made very clear, that to start meaningful talks, Kiev regime has to withdraw its forces from Zaporozhye, Kherson regions, DPR and LPR. Obviously, there should be no presence of Ukrainian and NATO terrorists into Kursk salient area. And after that, Russia might stop its offensive operations, and talks can begin. And during the negotiations, obviously, I believe Russia will say, you know what, referendum should be conducted in Ukrainian regions on a topic of staying or leaving Ukraine, and then simultaneously joining or not joining Russian Federation. And I'm quite sure people in Kharkov region, Dnipropetrovsk region, Nikolaev region, Odessa region, in many other regions, will vote to flee, leave Ukraine, so-called Ukraine, this non-entity, and to join Russia. But this referendum, topic of these referendums, will be, highlighted during the negotiations. But these negotiations to start, Kiev regime has to withdraw its forces from new regions of the Russian Federation and the Kursk salient area. Until that, there is nothing to talk about, right? And therefore, Russia will continue and continue and continue, and eventually, one way or another, but territory of this former Soviet Republic, with the exception of its western parts, will join Russia, will become part of Russian world again, let's say this way. Some may join Russia, others may maintain statehood, but in a zone of Russian influence. That's how it's gonna be. So therefore, dear friends, my recommendation is not to buy into this deception operation that we are seeing in last several days. Deception operation of the Western ruling class. They cannot be trusted, by the way. They cannot be trusted, and I don't think any Russian leadership will ever trust politicians from the West, ever, right? But for sure, in next 3 to 5 decades, I mean, trust cannot have a place when it comes to relationships with the West, man. No way, by the way. You cannot trust them, right? And for example, take a look at this news. Vice President of US stated that, US might actually send, even though head of Pentagon just a couple of days ago said US has no plans to send its troops to Ukraine. Well, Vice President today is saying that US may actually send its troops to Ukraine, and US might actually further increase sanctions pressure on Russia and further attack Russia, basically, if Moscow will not follow some orders from the Washington, if Moscow will not play along of everything that Washington will come up with. So do you see, dear friends, what is going on? They are already unveiling what kind of plans they have. Maybe J.D. Vance was not careful enough, and he made these statements little earlier. They should wait at least a week or two, right? But that's what is going on, man. That's what is happening. So I don't know. I saw some videos in alternative media. I don't care about MSM, by the way, obviously, but in alternative media, I see some optimistic reactions on current developments. Some experts really seems like believing that Washington is genuine when it comes to attempts to de-escalate or resolve Ukrainian crisis, and I find it difficult to understand how, for God's sake, how these people really believing in anything that comes out from Washington. Come on, man. I don't know. I don't know. But, you know, time will tell anyways, dear friends. Time will tell anyways. I am 100% convinced that unfortunately we will face next unprecedented scale of escalation between West and Russia, and only after that true de-escalation will begin, because Western ruling class will be threatened, will fear for their lives. It's simple as that, by the way. Simple as that. Right? Few more news. Kiev regime already lost more than 60,000 troops killed and wounded in the Kursk salient area, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. Also, a U.S. released Russian citizen Alexander Vinik, a programmer that was arrested first in 2017, by the way. First in Greece, then he was transferred to France, then to Greece, then eventually he ended up in US. Founder of one of the crypto exchanges. Also, reports are coming in that Israel could strike Iranian nuclear facilities in 2025, which might actually happen after all. Just recently, there were reports in the media that Israel did ask Trump, his administration, for weapons that will allow Israel to carry out such strikes, and most likely, Trump authorized transfer of such weapons. RT is also reporting that U.S. aircraft carrier collided with a cargo ship. So USS Harry Truman, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, collided with a merchant vessel, a basic TAS-M, in the Mediterranean Sea late Wednesday night. According to US Navy officials, at this point no reports about damage that was done to aircraft carrier or to merchant ship, but it is quite strange, by the way. Something is wrong with US Navy, I guess, because something is wrong with US militaries in general, right? Probably level of professionalism is degenerating so rapidly that it seems like they cannot really maintain or hold on to the weapons that they have in their disposal, because how, for God's sake, aircraft carrier collided with a merchant ship? How on earth that is even possible? I mean, aircraft carriers never move on their own, right? Alone. How this merchant ship end up this close with the carrier, I don't know, man. But I mean, this is crazy, right? And by the way, Trump also made statement that after his threats about BRICS, after his threats to tariff sanction BRICS member states, BRICS organization is dead. Okay. That's the intellectual potential of Trump, by the way. That's his level. Really, I mean, he thinks BRICS is dead because he threatened with the tariffs. Holy moly, man. Okay, this is it, by the way. This is it. I wanted to comment, by the way, on these developments, this phone conversation between Trump and Putin, and the rest of the statements that was made, this fake outrage in Europe and stuff. I just wanted to comment on this matter today, and I did share my take on the situation. I think this is a deception operation on part of Western ruling class and their puppets in the governments of Western world. In reality, unfortunately, what is happening is that West is paving ground for the next phase of escalation, and just mark my word, couple of weeks, and we will hear from collective West that they were so generous when it comes to relationships with Russia. They offer some good deal, but Russia refused, and therefore they're gonna further escalate. Okay, bring it on. By the way, bring it on. We will show you where your place is, and that's it. That's about it, dear friends. Relatively short update. I'm telling you, only we will see through the escalation only when Russia will retaliate with a heavy hand, and Western ruling class, through decision makers there, will fear for their lives. Only then they will authorize the escalation. Until that, yes, some may argue that there is some kind of civil war inside the Western so-called elites and groups that are prioritizing US are in conflict with the groups that are prioritizing Europe. This might be true, yes, but still, at this point, decision-making process is in hands of Western ruling class. They are acting in one direction. They are not ready to acknowledge that they lost this proxy war against Russia. They are unwilling to acknowledge that they were wrong with their attitude towards Russia, and therefore they will escalate. And once Russia will retaliate with a heavy hand, and Western ruling class will start fear for their lives, then they will authorize through the escalation. And then we will see real cracks appear between US and Europe. And Europe will start drifting away from rest of the world. And in 30-50 years, modern EU or EU member states will be some loosely relative outskirts of the Eurasian continent. That's their destiny, by the way, right? This is it for now. I hope I did explain my take on the situation. I want to be optimistic, by the way. I want to believe that yes, Washington is serious about the escalating, but when you are taking a look at the nuances, did they say anything really interesting? No, it's clearly deception. This media campaign in the West and fake outrage in Europe. I mean, this is clearly some deception operation. To pave the way for next phase of escalation, and they need this because this next phase of escalation will be on unprecedented scale, by the way. After that, there will be only one step left before full-scale nuclear exchange between the sides. That's how dangerous that next phase of escalation is going to be. But Western ruling class seems like willing to take this conflict with Russia there because seems like they believe Russia will not retaliate, but they themselves start believing that Russia is bluffing. But once Russia will retaliate, and in such a manner that Western ruling class will find themselves to be on the line of fire, well, then they will really start come to their senses and realizing what is going on. Then we will see the escalation. Anyways, hopefully I shared my opinion in a good enough English. Time will tell anyways, isn't it? Was I wrong or was I right in reading of this big picture? It's only a couple of weeks, by the way, and we will find out. And yes, thank you very much for your attention. And if you want to support, dear friends, this project and my work, all the links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. Have a wonderful day, great upcoming weekend, and take care.